Okay, I think we are good to go. Let me just double check if Ken has been able to join. We were chatting a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm here. I've been here.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Mm.
Great. All right, so let's start. Like I said, it seems we do have about half and half real human beings and quite a number of note takers. But I think let's go ahead. So today we are on to week 3 of our discussions on commercialization. So we first started week 1 with market problem fit and strategy. I think that set the stage for us reviewing what the real value is that we bring to the table as organizations, either to our direct partners or our partners' customers, if we are going through kind of B2B engagements, even if we are going directly to the end customer in a B2C engagement. This helped us kind of rethink our problem market fit and how we can better verbalize how we bring that value into the market to make us more relevant. And the importance of relevance is because this is what people pay for. The more relevant.
Excuse-moi. Quand je suis ici, là, c'est machine à occupation.
Let me see if we somebody is speaking. You need to go on mute.
Je sais pas.
Let me see if I can mute them. I can't mute them, so I don't know if Andrew is on the call. If you can give me, if you can give me control.
Andrew is in the call.
Sorry?
Andrew is in the call.
Okay, but he's not saying anything. But okay, let's continue. So the second week, we talked about B2B partnerships. And this week, we have a bit of a long engagement, and I hope you guys will bear with me and stay with me through what would be 2 parts of talking about sales. Primarily now we're talking about the nuts and bolts of sales. And we'll also talk about teams and training, how you can start scaling up your sales teams. So I think this should be quite interesting because I know for a number of you, these are areas that I know that you're starting to try and get your head around. As you start scaling, this becomes more and more important because obviously without sales, you cease to exist as an organization. You will run out of your runway of funding, whether it is your own money that is funding the business right now, or through a partnership, or through some funds that you have found through whatever angle. Those funds tend to be finite. And the reason people are investing in you is because they expect that investment to start paying back at some point. And that only comes through sales. So this will be probably the longest session we have. Hopefully we'll be done in about 1 hour, 50 minutes, including a short break in between. But I'll try and keep it interesting, and hopefully if we are engaged, it will be something that is worth your while. So as usual, for the guys who have not been here, I quickly introduce myself. My name is Andrew Waititu. I'm the managing partner and founder of Leapfrog Advisory. I have a background of over 30 years in selling technology. And beyond that, I currently, what I do is that I try and help organizations that are investing in technology in this space. This is Eastern Africa. To kind of hone their go-to-market strategies, to hone their product placement strategies, to hone their partnerships. Who should they be working with? That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Aside from that, I currently sit on the board of one of the largest insurance companies here in Kenya. They are a global brand, and through that kind of dual hatting, that's the kind of relevance hopefully I should bring to the table to you guys today and through the course. I'll be running these sessions with my co-consultant. His name is Ken Timber, and I'll hand the mic over to him for him to do a quick intro.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Hi, guys. Like Andrew said, my name is Ken Timber, or KT. It's easier to remember. I'm working with Andrew on this, more specifically because my experience over the last 30 years has been what I'd like to call hardcore selling. So the things that you techies build in terms of solutions that sort of replace the humans or replace the processes that were done by humans, I'll be able to share my first-hand experience of lead sourcing, knocking on doors, the challenges of cultural differences, and so on. So I've spent a lot of time, right from being a sales rep to a sales manager to heading a region in sales. And again, part of the process is recruitment, selection, training, managing for results. And the cycle starts again where you recruit and select and train and onboard and so on and so forth. So I'll be sharing my experiences. Apart from that, I've had a pretty colorful sports career. I used to play rugby with Andrew many years ago when we were both young men. I went on to play for Kenya rugby and also coach Kenya rugby and one of the top sides in Kenya. So I've got a bit of experience also in the sports field. However, the management principles, be it in sports or in business, there are certain foundations that do not change. So I'll be able to try and bring a voice to those things that might sound too technical. Thanks. Oh, yes, and I have a blog that I talk about sales. Yeah, and I'll share it at some point. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, KT. Yeah, you can put it in the chat. So
Yeah.
one of the things KT is probably not saying is that in his current role as the lead consultant at Sales Resource Africa is that he does exactly what it is that many of you are trying to do, which is build teams of, let's say, a sales army that can go out and help, create leads for business. So this is something I'm hoping that he'll be able to speak through as we go on in the course of the day today. So our agenda, just quickly, so we'll talk about what sales is. Obviously, we need to understand what a sale is before we're even able to start talking about who we want to sell for us and the importance of that. We'll talk about a couple of questions which I think are vital in any sales pitch, which is so what and who cares. We'll talk about the different buyer influencers. We'll talk about competition, the customer buy cycle. We'll then take a quick break, just a couple of minutes to help everyone catch their breath. We'll then go into understanding sales channels. We'll go into a view of B2B versus B2C. We'll look at sales team strategy and development, how you grow your sales team, what areas you should be focusing on. And then finally, we'll wrap up and see what you guys can take away to work on to build, to obviously put all this theory into practice. So the basics. A lot of you guys already know this, but again, this is something that you have to spend time on because these are the questions that will help you build your sales engagement, whether you're going to use like a telesales model where someone will have a script that they read, your sales training manuals, basically your idea of number one, who are we selling to and what do we tell them? So answering this question, who is your real customer? Is it an organization? Is it a persona within that organization? And then what is that person interested in? What is our value and how do we attach ourselves to that interest of this person? Who is your competition? A lot of you know of competition. We probably don't spend enough time thinking about and planning around competition. We'll try and fix that. And then finally, how do we make it repetitive? How is it that we can go and do this over and over and over again? Because multiple sales is what really, that is where real scalability comes from. So this is, for me, probably one of the most basic questions that you should be able to answer yourself based on anything that you go out and tell a customer. So take, for example, I'm out in the market, I want to buy a new car, and the salesperson, I walk into a sales room, I'm looking at a new Toyota Land Cruiser, and the guy comes up to me and starts telling me, oh, this is the latest Toyota Land Cruiser. It's a 2025 model. It's got a 4.2 turbo diesel V8 engine. It sits 5 with extra 2 seats at the back. And he's just telling me the features. He's not answering this question. So what? So what if it has a big engine? I'm thinking if I came here because a big engine is actually the fuel consumption of a big engine is a problem, maybe this is not the car for me. And this is typical. If you think about it, this is how typically tech people sell. You come and you start talking bits and bytes and speeds and megahertz and all these kind of things without answering this primary question. So what? So if I tell you this car has got a 4.2 turbo diesel V8 engine producing X amount of horsepower, I should be able to tell you that that horsepower will maybe get you out of tricky situations if you're overtaking safely, or will be able to get you from point A to point B, cruising at 120 kilometers per hour, where it will actually be more efficient than a smaller engine. So you start to understand how important it is that you answer first, so what, with whatever spiel is coming out of your mouth, and then who cares? The who cares bit is also important, and you'll find that I like to use car sales as an example, and I'll let Thimba, also speak to this because he's also been a salesperson for many, many years. You go into a car sales room now, any modern car sales room with people who know what they are doing, you will find that the guy who is, if it's a sales man selling to a gentleman who's walked into a sales room, he will be talking about all the speeds and all these kind of things, and the size of the boot and the braking power and all these kind of things. If you're selling to a lady, what might be more important might even, and I'm not trying to put any color on this, but it might be more important how many different colors of the vehicle are there as opposed to purely the engine power. How many storage areas are there within the organization? Is there a place that I can safely, if I have children, put in a child seat? So the interests of who it is that you're selling to may differ. And I know that's a bit extreme, but that kind of should put into your mind the importance of being able to understand the importance of these two questions. So what and who cares? So maybe, Katie, I don't know if you've got any comment you'd like to throw in there.
Yeah. Okay, just to build on the car salesman, since that's where we are at. Again, like Andrew said, you never sell to an organization. People don't like feeling like they're being sold to. So you walk up to this guy in the showroom, and one of the things you would first do is sort of like introduce yourself, do the icebreakers, yes, and also find out if he's just browsing. He could be also the driver of someone who's also looking, and you make your pitch to the wrong person. So you've got to be very, very clear about, number one, establishing a relationship with them. You can see on the slide, people don't like feeling sold to. So you want to be able to, and the sales process is a relationship process. Think of dating, think of getting married, think of getting your engagement ring, and so on. You want to be able to convey a feeling, even with technology, that this is a relationship that's going to last. It's not just a one-off. So you need to start drawing out that person. You need to have what we do in hardcore sales is called a questioning model. And there are two types of questions. There's questions which are as is. As is merely talks about you determining where is that person now. Do you have a four-wheel drive, or do you have a different type of car? What do you like about it? Yeah. What would you like to see in another car? So you get to know the situation. Then you get to know where the person wants to be. And at that point, the solution then you're offering is what we call a bridge. That means that the technology solution will be able to move them from where they are to where they should be. So again, it's right there in front of you. Prepare the right open-ended questions. So you don't want to get yourself into a situation where someone says yes or no. And you could ask things like, just building on what Andrew had said. So what colors do you like, or what are you particularly interested in? Is it the engine? Is it the room? Do you play golf? Do you need space for your golf clubs, and so on and so forth? So you need to prepare open-ended questions that clarify then those assumptions. Then, again, finding out the problem statements. So what challenges are you facing with your current car, and what would you like to see in a new car? Even before you've gone to talking about the 4.2 V8 engine and so on and so forth. You need to know what that person is looking for, and you can be able to match that person's needs to what you're able to offer. Yeah, that's that for now. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or jump in.
Thanks, Katie. So again, going back to the value statement. If you are, let me try and put this slide into perspective. You have created a fantastic value statement that is punchy, that is catchy, and because you bumped into a potential customer in a lift and he asked, hey, by the way, what is it that you do? And your value statement got them hooked. And he was like, okay, actually next week on Tuesday, come and see me. I'll give you half an hour to tell me more about what it is that you do. And unfortunately, what a lot of us tend to do is to go and now spend the entire half hour just trying to validate your value statement instead of, what Ken has said, this 80-20 rule. You're already in the room. One of the things that you should probably do in the first, 2/3 of that meeting is to try and understand who this customer actually is. And that's what this slide is really all about. What is it that they are currently doing? What are their problems? Where is it that you can really add value beyond what you expect? And then even if, by the way, you cannot attach all of these in that same meeting, what you want to do is just leave hooks so that you have another meeting where you can come back and expound onto how your solution, as Katie has said, will bridge them from wherever they are now to wherever they want to be. During this time, as you're doing your homework, you'll find out what are the organization goals. Say maybe even before you've gone for this first meeting, you've gone online, understood what it is that is important to this organization. If you can find anything about budgets, where they spend their money, that's important, or where they don't spend their money, also just as important. And basically be prepared. Try and understand, is this, for example, a tier 2 player in the insurance industry that has always dreamt of becoming a tier 1 player, so that you're able to start speaking towards that, that objective that this organization has. So do your homework, but importantly, anything that comes out of your mouth, you should be able to speak to so what and who cares. Let's look quickly at the environment, another critical part. So, and this goes now a bit deeper into the preparation, which is your customer, what is their strategy, what is their position in the marketplace, what products do they have, what type of organization are they? Are they in flux? Are they part of a larger group? Are they, growing exponentially right now and, struggling to deal with certain areas? What kind of customers do they have, or do they target? So as an example, and I'll use probably a Kenyan example, if you're to go and speak to banks, maybe 5-10 years ago, if you're to speak to Equity Bank, they were very clear about who was important, was an important customer to them, which was the kind of the bottom of the pyramid. And if you're to go into a bigger bank, say a multinational like ABSA or Standard Chartered, they would be on the opposite end of the scale, looking at big business, so on and so forth. And that focus will obviously mean a different kind of engagement strategy for both the customer, this is your target, and for you, because maybe your solution doesn't speak to the customer's customer. So you have to keep that in mind. We'll talk a lot more about the competition in a couple of slides. You have to think about legislative and regulatory changes. I was speaking with one of you guys earlier in the week in our session. And one of the things that they do is that they try and automate the back end of insurance companies. And importantly, there's a new regulation that's coming up that's being driven, globally in the insurance industry, which is a financial reporting, system called IFRS 17. And in Kenya, all companies had to go live with IFRS 17 by January 2025 this year. So over the last 18 months before January, a lot of organizations were focused on ensuring that they would be ready for this changeover. And if you talked to an organization at that time during those 18 months, that the value that you would bring to them in whatever system that you brought was IFRS 17 ready, or would help them be more prepared, of course their ears would be open and they would want to talk to you, because a lot of organizations had huge challenges with meeting these deadlines. So think about legislative and regulatory changes. They could work for you, they could work against you, depending on what you're doing, what kind of solution you're providing. In some places, like here again in Kenya and many parts of Africa also, you find car insurance, at a minimum, you must have third-party car insurance. It's a legal mandate. And that means if you have a car on the road, you must have car insurance. But what that means is that for many people, they look for ways to loop around that and dodge the system and maybe print or fabricate insurance so that they're not stopped by the police. So if your solution looks at fraud in car insurance, you're already talking to 100% of insurance companies in the country, at least in Kenya. So you have to be able to see how you position yourself, and if you get strength from regulation or weakness. In some cases that may happen. Economic drivers, it goes without saying, things are getting tougher and tougher. But if you're able to, and in insurance specifically, we know that the margins are very, very slim. So if you're able to prove that your solution will probably bring in more customers more profitably, then again, you've got people's ears open. Policy drivers, mentioned that, and political drivers, I think it goes without saying, many times in African countries, in the year of an election, business tends to drop. And those are some of the things that may impact you if, for example, you're trying to launch a new product in a very politically charged environment. So these are some of the things that you need to think about. Ken, anything you would like to add here?
Yes, just a quick one. And it's just an add-on onto who your customer is and their organization. When you're asking an organization to purchase something from you, you need to also understand their purchase behavior across all organizations. If it's a corporate, they are guided by annual budgets. So if you're making your pitch in September or October, you're talking about Q3. For you to realistically expect them to close within the next 3 or 4 months may be impossible, or it's not a reasonable expectation. Why? Because they budget from January to December, for example, and they have budgeted their purchases for the year and so on. So maybe if you're talking to them in September, you're talking to them to make sure, or convincing them to make sure to make them create a budgetary allocation for your product in the next year. So you need to also understand, and when Andrew talks about the organization, you also need to start looking deeply, and probably we'll go into this later, into, again, their decision-making cycle. Is your purchase one that requires to go through, or rather your sale, one that requires to go through procurement? There are certain things that you've got to fulfill, and so on and so forth, so that you don't just dive deep and start asking questions when they say no. So you need to start thinking about the organization, and when you talk about the organization, specifically think around the decision-making process. Your product might be great for the users, but the CFO, who might be the guy who signs on the check, doesn't see the value. So you need to create your pitch such that you're appealing to different people. HR people want fairness, they want it to be just, they want equality, and so on. Does your product offer those things? So you should be able to then tailor make your offering to the different decision-making channels within an organization. Yep, that's that for me for now.
Thanks, Ken. So let's talk about buyer influencers, and I'm glad Ken kind of touched a little bit on this in terms of the different people you're speaking to. I'll try and be relatively brief on this, but and these may not cover all the buyer influencers, but basically what we are talking about here is the people who make a decision that will impact whether your sale happens, your engagement goes forward, or your partnership, whatever it is that you want to call it. The first one is the economic decision maker. This is usually one person, but they may need final approval from a committee or a board. This person controls budget, has final veto power, which is very important, and is interested in return on investment. Remember, this is the economic decision maker. What you need to do is align the customer objectives, which is usually around ROI, and goals with the value proposition of the solution. So when you're speaking to CFO, CEO. These are typically the kind of people that you'll be dealing with. You want to be able to tell them that our solution will impact your bottom line like this because of X, Y, and Z. This is the way that you will get, these people listening to you. If you're talking to an economic decision maker about the speed of your solution, the number of transactions per second you're doing, you're missing the connection. So usually one person, but depending again, as KT said, on the size of the purchase or the importance of the partnership, they may need to go to a committee or a board to get final approval. But the board will tend to go with this person's recommendation. So you have to have this person be able to recommend you, otherwise you're dead in the water. The second are users. These could be several people or even teams and need to be sold on the benefit of the product or service in their day-to-day lives. You should not make their lives harder. You should make it easier. You should not threaten their jobs as much as right now everybody's talking about AI and the importance of AI in fraud management, so on and so forth, and speeding up decision making. Sorry? Was there a question? Maybe not. These people will have to live with your solution. And if your solution is looking like it might threaten their actual livelihoods, because either they'll not be able to use the system because they're not literate in IT that way, or that you will require fewer of them, these guys will fight you. The interest for them is that the solution will determine their success. So if someone is working in a fraud department, head of fraud, and your AI solution is going to help with fraud, you need to be able to sell the fact that they will look good, they will do a much better job, and because you'll be saving the company money, you can probably reposition some of the resources that they were using, or maybe they didn't exist, somewhere else in the organization through retraining. So you have to think through your total story. You need to ensure you're addressing their pain points, or you will further, and that you will not further complicate their lives. Then there's one here, I think my slide has dropped out a little bit. I'll read it out for you. Just a second. Which is the technical buyer. And usually this is a small team. They will judge the fit of the solution, measuring quantifiable aspects. So these are the guys who would be interested in speeds and all that kind of stuff. So it's important that they are on board in that sense. They cannot give final approval, but more importantly, they can say no. And I hope you understand that, because the more senior people, the economic decision maker, will need the yes of these people. You have to get these guys on board. Otherwise, you will not go beyond this engagement. The reason being, obviously, they act as gatekeepers of technology and have to be bought in to what it is that you're selling. So the next person we'll talk about here is a coach. This is usually one person, maybe at most two. They act as an internal guide, and they will help you map out not just the influencers, but the organization, who you should speak to, who is available, who are the gatekeepers of the CEO and what you need to do to open those doors, and are interested in you to win. What you need to do with these guys is keep in close touch, arm them with information to defend you, because they will have conversations when you're not in the room on your behalf. So those are 4 of the main buyer influencers that you'll meet. There are 2 more, and I'd like to cover them before I open the floor for questions. There is the blocker, very important. The blocker is an influential individual who has had a bad experience with you, or maybe just doesn't like you or a member of your team or your solution, what you stand for, or more importantly, they support your competition. This person will try everything in their power to slow down or even derail your sales process. They could be supporting your competitor. There's not much you can do with this person except try and make them a bit more neutral. But usually it's very important to just know that they exist. Then there's legal and compliance. A lot of the time when we are selling, we forget about these guys. And sometimes you could have gone all the way down a sale, you're now ready to sell, and then someone says, okay, where is the contract? And you haven't yet given your contracts to the legal team, and it takes another 1 month before they're reviewed. And you tend to find that they'll always come up with stuff that can either block your sale or even completely throw it out. It is important that these guys are involved as soon as possible because often, especially for startups, we don't have strong legal teams. And sometimes, for example, even something as simple as an NDA, you'll be forced to sign the NDA of the bigger company. But let them start helping you work on your terms and conditions of the contract, so on and so forth, so that towards the end of the sale, you're not derailed. So any questions, comments, any additions, Ken, you'd like to add? So remember the blocker, legal compliance, we have economic decision maker, users, technical buyer, and your coach.
Okay, just a quick one on understanding who your buyers are. What you will notice from what Andrew has said all along is that you've got to start creating relationships with each of these people. It may not be all of them. It would be certain individuals. One of the things, again, in when you're knocking on doors physically, one of the things we do is understand the role of gatekeepers. And gatekeepers could be the guard at the gate. It could be the person, the guard at the reception. It could be the receptionist. They also could be your coaches. And they would be, I used to do something after I learned from a friend of mine who used to chat up all the secretaries and all the PAs. And even before a presentation, he would create a relationship with all the personal assistants or the secretaries of the boss. And they used to do an amazing thing for him. Whenever the boss was in the office, they would call him and tell him the boss is in now. So come now, or the boss is in a bad mood, and so on and so forth. So again, while we are developing tech stuff, we develop tech stuff to either replace or to almost mirror and make more efficient what we did in an analog way. So you've got to start thinking about those things. Yes, your proposal or your pitch is great, but there are a lot of other people. Nowadays, you call them influencers. Before, they would be called like gatekeepers or nominators, people who would be able to give you insights into what you're selling or what the organization is about. So again, key to all of this is relationship building. Yeah, that's all for me for now.
Okay, thanks, Ken. So let's talk about the competition. Like I said, again, competition is something that we must pay close attention to. And it's important that you do not box the competition into, for example, a competing solution. The definition of competition is any alternative, and maybe even solution is here being used loosely. Because an alternative, as you'll see there, could be doing nothing. The alternative, of course, could be a solution, an actual solution that competes with what it is that you do. It could be using the budget for something else. Remember, we talked about the economic times that many organizations are going through. So you have a finite amount of budget that you start the year with. And as Ken said, if you're coming in late to try and sell something when it was not budgeted for, in that year, you probably will not go anywhere. But you want to make sure that you are in the actual budget financial year, so that they buy from you. Using or modifying existing solutions, this tends to happen until it's at a critical point in time. Customer X has been using base solution, whether handwritten forms and all these kind of things to do whatever it is that you do, and have used it until now they actually have to look at something else. And sometimes that something else could be moving from paper forms to Excel because they think that will speed things up. And lastly, like I said, just doing nothing. You must also know your position in relation to the competition. Are you the only one being considered? Which is obviously a good place to be, especially when you're doing something that is unique, innovative. There's nobody else in the market doing that thing. Or there is competition, but you are the preferred solution provider. So you're still, you're not alone, but you have a higher likelihood of closing the deal. Or the decision could go either way, or the competition is firmly positioned. And like I said, the competition in some cases could be doing nothing. So it's important that you do some homework, and you'll see on the right side of your screen a simple way to kind of identify who your direct competitors are, and then use the scale at the bottom to try and position them so that you're keeping them in sight. And let me just explain quickly. The top right talks about understanding who your customers are considering, understand what their products and strategies are. This is your competition. Get a good ear, and this is where what Ken said is important, where you're building networks within your target organization, and you've got people who are giving you information on what the competition is doing, what stories they are telling, so that you know how to counter them, and then prioritize who you need to work against, or in some cases even work with, if they are very strong. And prioritizing them will be done on the bottom right, where you'll have two scales. You either have a legacy competitor. A legacy competitor here could be paper. An emerging competitor could be an AI-driven solution that is beyond the capabilities of what you have. There could be a direct competitor where they're providing a solution the same as what it is that you're doing. If, for example, you're saying we are doing fraud management in claims processing, and then this other guy also does exactly the same thing. So that would be a direct competitor. If they are emerging using technologies, they would fall in this space. There could be an indirect competitor where there may be, handling a different aspect of the business, where, say, for example, you're handling fraud management at the insurance company. These guys are probably doing fraud management at the actual provider, healthcare provider, at the hospital. So they're an indirect competitor, but they are kind of doing the same thing. So you'd be able to position your competitors in any of these four quadrants, and depending on how far they are along each axis, you're able to tell, how much of a competitor they are to you, so that you know how to prioritize a reaction to them. Any questions here before we go to the customer buy cycle?
Yes, I do have a question, Andrew.
Please.
Thank you for the presentation, by the way. Yeah, you were talking about the economic decision maker. Well, I think fundamentally one of the biggest challenges that I suppose most salespeople, endure, and you would agree to that, is getting to the gatekeeper, because you don't have access to that person that makes the economic decision. So you have to go through, sometimes you get a telephone call. You make a telephone call to the gatekeeper, and then that's the painful part, to get past them, to try and convince them. So before you can get to the person that actually makes the decision, that takes the wallet and pay for whatever you're trying to sell to them. So I was just asking if you can just, because that's the painful part of the whole process, if you can touch on that or elaborate from your experience, like ways of getting past that, because when you try and get to penetrate the gatekeeper, it's extremely difficult at some cases.
Yeah, and that is 100% true, and I've had hundreds of engagements that way. But I want to bring you back to something Ken said, which is about relationships. Depending on how important this engagement is, you want to be able to build relationships with certain key people. But take into account, the reason this person is there is because they're exactly that. They are a gatekeeper. They are to keep this CEO focused on what is important, so that they are not being, because all it will take is the CEO or CFO, whoever it is, to smack down on their PA because they let some guy in to waste their time for 30 minutes around some solution that he doesn't understand. So the key thing is to build up credibility to the point that you are able to get past the gatekeeper. How do you build that credibility? Your relationship with your coach. Who is your coach? Who can help you navigate through that organization? Who is the value buyer? It is not yet the economic decision maker, but there's someone who will be impacted by value. It might be the same person, but you have to identify at the minimum those two people, because those two people are the guys who will open the door for you to the economic decision maker. And usually the economic decision maker meeting will not be you one-on-one. It will be with you, the economic decision maker, and the value buyer, or whoever is seen to be getting most out of this thing that you're bringing to the table, because you'll be answering questions together. If you go usually by yourself, depending on how big the organization is, how big this person is, how big the sale is, you have to be super, super prepared before you enter that room to be able to engage and defend yourself so that that meeting is useful. And usually what happens is that this, your coach, the value buyer, if it's a different person, and sorry, there's one more person, of course, the PA. You'd have worked on the PA to get, as Katie said earlier, when is the best time to see this person? When he's in a good mood? Is it in the morning after he has had his coffee, after they have had good results as a company? Many things will come to play. And then you'll be told, actually, don't see this person today. I'll book you some other time. You'll have only 15 minutes. So make sure you do what it is that you're doing. But before I hand you over, I would like Katie to maybe say one or two things. This is something that he has done for many, many years, door to door as well.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, Abu, very, very interesting. But that's where the sales job starts. And that's the difficulty most people in technology have, because you're used to speaking to a computer or to an inanimate object and not to people. So there's that difficulty in how to get through the gatekeeper. Okay, I'll give you a couple of examples that we've used. So if I was to walk into Abu's office and you have a gatekeeper, you have a receptionist, but I do not know you. I hope you can hear me clearly. Can you? Okay, good. All right. So I walk into Abu's office. There's a receptionist, and Abu is sitting somewhere in the back or hidden, and I want to see you, but I know that the receptionist will not let me in. She has strict instructions from the boss that I don't want to see anyone. But I walk up to her or him and say, hi, my name is Ken. Is Abu in? What kind of response would the receptionist give? If I introduce myself and ask, is Abu in? the receptionist can only say one of two things: yes or no, or what it is about. But the moment I say Abu and not Mr. Abu, or call you by another name, then I would be suggesting that I'm already familiar with the person who I want to speak with. So most receptionists or gate people will not want to piss off the boss's friend. So you've got to almost fake it till you make it. And that's the face-to-face approach. But then, like I said, that's where the real sales job starts. You've got to get into their lives or create relationships with these people. So you want to see Andrew. Is Andrew Muslim or Christian? What church does he go to? What mosque does he go to? And the moment I meet Andrew at the mosque and I just say, hi, you look familiar, my name is so and so, I've already established a connection. The next time we meet, he will remember me from the mosque or from the church or from whatever it is they do, whether they jog, whether they bet on football or whatever. So what is not being said here is there are those things that you have to do then. You have to wear the shoes of the salesperson and mimic what a salesperson would do. So again, this is a topic that I could go on and on and on about, but in a nutshell, the challenge for any of you entrepreneurs is to be able to meet the right people. We talked about networks and so on. So you've got to, whether it's your LinkedIn and you're getting referred and so on, you've got to use all of those tools at your disposal. Because if you went direct, probably that person won't listen to you. So are you a member of an alumni association? Did you live in the same estate? Do you come from the same village? And so on and so forth. Those are the critical things in getting you through the door. So you've got to think typically outside the box in terms of how you get through the gatekeeper. And you can easily map them and document ways that you and your sales team can try out. So yeah,
Thanks, Katie. You've actually reminded me of an interesting situation I was in sometime last year. There's an organization I was working for, and they were setting up an office here in Nairobi, and they were hiring. And a particular person who I think was in the pipeline, she was the kind of the top 3 people being considered for a job. Found out, and Katie knows this. So one of the hobbies I have is playing music. I actually DJ as a side gig once in a while. So this lady had heard that I was having a gig somewhere. She actually bought a ticket and found a mutual friend, somebody who I knew, to introduce herself to me at that event. So a bit unorthodox. But then now when I was going through, the names of the people, I was like, oh, this is that person, very aggressive, and we're looking for a salesperson, thinking out of the box kind of thing. So I wouldn't say whether she got the job or not, but you kind of get what Ken is saying. You have to sometimes think, not everything is written in a book or in a manual or in a training. You just have to use your intuition. And that's why we started by saying you're selling to people. You're not selling to organizations, you're selling to people. I hope that answers your question, Abu. Okay, let's go on to the last slide of this journey, which is the customer buy cycle. And I want you to think about the last thing that you bought, whatever it was. Whether it was big, whether it was small, it could have been a pair of shoes, it could have been a suite, it could have been a car, it could have been a home. Everybody goes through these steps of this customer buy cycle. And the first thing is awareness that there's a need or a problem that I need to solve. It could be as simple as I've run out of soap, I need to buy more soap. If you know which soap you want, you will jump all these bits and just go straight to purchase, because you don't need to research, you don't need to consider, you don't need to make a decision. You just need to find time to go to the shop and buy. But I'll take you through the steps. If you're buying a car, you walk into, the reason you've walked into a sales room is because there's a need or a problem. Your existing car is probably not, fitting the bill. It's old. Your family has grown, whatever it is. You've moved to a different part of the country that requires a different kind of vehicle, or you're now a farmer and you're looking for a pickup truck. So you have a need or a problem. You'll do your research. Nowadays, with AI, you punch into ChatGPT and ask it all the questions you want. You do your own research. You go and do reviews, read reviews online, so on and so forth. And research also includes talking to friends. When you're looking for a car, and I'm sure many of you have felt this if you drive, is that when you're looking for a car and you have your mind kind of set on, I'm looking at a Toyota Hilux pickup, you start to see them everywhere. And that's a different psychological bias that is beyond the scope of this class. But you start to see them everywhere, and you might have a friend who has one, and you'll call them up and do some research on how is it behaving? Is it working as you expected? How's the after-sales service? So on and so forth. By the time you're walking to a showroom, this is the consideration part, you're really now almost committed. You probably have some budget or a budget number in mind, and you've told yourself, yes, I want a Hilux, but I hear there's this thing called a Ford Ranger. Can I compare the two, or a Mazda, or whatever it is? Let me compare the 2 or 3 best options. Then I make a decision, and then I purchase. Then there is a post-purchase aspect, which a lot of us, forget about, which is either post-purchase blues, where you feel, okay, I've gotten a lemon. This thing isn't doing what exactly I thought it was going to do. And this happens a lot with technology. Or a high, where things are moving well and you're happy and so on and so forth. Or you just move on because I was just buying soap and it's working as it's supposed to. But there is an evaluation that happens in your head post-purchase, whether you like it or not. It's automatic, because that's what will create either loyalty or advocacy that you see at the bottom there, where you start going out there, you're making TikTok videos talking about how great this new Hilux pickup is, and it's doing all the magic on your farm, and you're making recommendations for other people to buy the same thing. So all customers tend to go through this. And the reason this is important is because you have to understand where your buyer is in this process. They could have called you and they're already at consideration because they have done their research and heard that there's this new company that's doing this solution. Or your social media campaign has created an awareness that is speaking directly to a need or a problem that they have, and they have done a bit of research of you guys online, and you have created this consideration. So they have called you in to do some demos, proof of concept, so on and so forth. And then they have to make a decision and then purchase. The reason I say this is important is because once you understand where they are in the journey, you then now know which buttons to push them to the next step. So when they're in consideration, this is where you talk to them about proof of concepts. This is where you put case studies on the table, proving all the things that you're saying, so that you push them towards making a decision. Once they have made a decision, this is where now you're talking about contracting and all these other things, so that they move to purchase, and so on and so forth. So this is so important in ensuring that you know where your customer is in this journey. And the only way to know about this is by asking the right questions, going back to the slides that we had earlier. Any questions or comments? Katie, you're free to also add anything that you may have here.
Okay, let me wait for the questions. Maybe there's some questions, then I could jump in, but I'll jump in.
Nothing on the chat. Any questions from anyone? You can type them, you can ask them. I see someone has opened up their camera. You want to unmute and ask your question? Okay, if there are none, Katie, you want to say anything?
And it's about, again, understanding your customer journey. So even when you're planning, like what Andrew said, your campaigns and so on, you want to be able to make them such that even when you get a call, you're pretty ready to respond to the queries. But again, it all goes back to what I was calling the questioning model. If you question correct, you will be able to find out at what point of this person's customer journey your potential client is. You'd be able to ask, for example, have you looked at any other solutions, or is this the first one? And from there, you'd be able then now to determine this guy is at the consideration stage and needs to make a purchase. What used to happen a lot in the insurance industry, sometimes you'd bump into a client who a sales rep was careless and did not follow up. So the person was maybe ready at the decision stage, but he could not get in touch with the sales rep. And some of the questions they would be asking is that things like, what payment options do I have? How soon will the solution start working? And so on and so forth. So again, you can tie in your customer cycle journey to the kind of questions you ask when you're trying to find out exactly what the pain point for the customer is. But it's absolutely important that you understand where you are in this decision. You don't want someone who is buying to tell them, oh, by the way, do you know that this solution will help you with this, that, the other? Do not add any more detail. Many salespeople start giving extra details that then lose the customer. Because you might say that, yeah, we only have, if it's a vehicle, that we do not have Tiptronic on this version, we have it on the next. And this person was set to buy the vehicle with or without Tiptronic. So now you've led them down another garden path that will complicate the closing decision. So you've got to be very, very aware, especially with the questions you like. The beauty about them is that you are able to list those questions. And by listing them, then you'd be able to, at the beginning, before you get good at it, tick the boxes and say, yes, I've determined that this client is at this step or this step or this step, because it helps you then understand what the next steps, or rather the things that you need to do in the next steps are. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Katie. So I think that kind of brings us to the end of that section. And the question which I'd asked earlier, which is the last thing you bought, and did you go through these steps? So, just think about it, and more importantly, put yourself in the customer's shoes, the customer that you're targeting actually this week. Think about who is that customer, where are they in the decision process? Are they the economic decision buyer? Are they the economic decision maker? Are they the technical decision maker? Are they a user? And sometimes all these can be one person. Like in the case of a car, often it is the one person who's all these things. So, think about that when you're engaging with your customers next. So let's look at the teams and the different strategies for B2B and B2C selling. I don't know if you guys need a break or should we just push through? We might be able to finish this in about 30 minutes or so.
Hello?
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 Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I'm Virginie from Cova. Excuse me, I had a question
Sure.
that I would like to let you finish to talk. It's very interesting what you say, and I think that it could be really, you talk about being prepared, you talk about the right question. I'm agree it because sometimes the natural is coming back. You have to you want to tell how long how is fast to use your solution of that thing. So do you think that we have to build ourselves, or you got template of like a kind of I don't know if the name is tool in English, but I think that we need something to prepare ourselves, like what is the right question to the coach, what's the right question to the other people. It's not natural, even for me. It's not something natural. Sometimes you are doing like navigating with our understanding every time, but I think it's take more time when you innovate every day. Every time you try to adapt yourself, and sometimes you are not it's not that you are not prepared, but you are not doing the right thing. You are not doing the right thing. Maybe you are losing time because you are not doing the right thing. You can have a 2 hours, with somebody, and finally, it can be his fault because sometimes the buyer uh, has his own sensitivity. He can talk about everything, and finally you cannot have any time to ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
So
That is
my question is, first, I hope we will have the presentation, but if it exists, some kind of tools of books or any links where we can go to have professional template, it will be very helpful for us really to do something scientific, because I'm really in this situation when I understand what you are talking, and I know that sometimes you are not doing the right thing, not because you are not knowing, you are not reading the good way, you are not the passionate, but just because in the conversation, I think that before going to a rendezvous or after, we need to have somewhere where we say, okay, where is the coach? Where is the gatekeeper? Because if the next meeting is with the coach, we have to prepare it, even if it's not me, but the person going to the meeting have to know that, okay, this one is the coach, this is the tool when you are in, because, and even as a CEO, I can have something saying that, okay, where are my question? Where are my response? You were with a coach. Where are the response in my question? So that the salesperson can have also a pressure, because even if the conversation is navigating the way of the interlocutor, he know that he have to went back at home with these responses. And for the moment, I don't really have something scientific or something professional on it. And I really appreciate if you can help us on it.
okay. So unfortunately, there is two parts to sales. There's the art and there's the science. I'm talking right now around the science, which is what you need to do. And there are many tools available online. We'll speak about some of them next week on Tuesday when we are talking about sales tools and all that. We'll speak about some of the tools that you can use. But the art is a muscle that you must build, where when you start talking to your customer, you start to understand who is this person, because you have done it so often that you start to understand that this person is actually nobody in the zoo. We call it who's who in the zoo. This person I should not even waste much time with. This quiet person on the other side of the room is the one who's asking the real questions that are to do with the business and where the business is going. So I need to focus on them. So these are things that it's a muscle that you will build over time. But what I wanted to say that I don't know if you were there on the first session that we had around product market fit and the building of your value proposition, which is literally just a sentence. There was, I'll put it at the end of, on the chat box. I'll put it on the chat box. You can see how it is built, but you can use the same structure for different individuals that you're engaging with. But you have to understand what their pain points are so that the value part of your solution stands out to their pain points. Because, for example, if I'm looking for a pickup truck as a farmer, my pain point would be maybe to move my goods, my bananas, which I've grown, to the market. And my pain point would be how many bananas can I move? And this is a 1-ton truck. It can take, 30 bunches of bananas, which weigh 1 ton to the market, which equals X amount of dollars. That is a pain point. My other pain point is around fuel efficiency. But the first pain point is how many goods I can move. Second pain point is fuel efficiency. Third pain point is if it gets broken, where do I fix it? So understanding that those are the pain points, and in that order, I can now speak my value proposition in the right way that makes sense to this person, to whoever that person is. I hope that has kind of answered your question to a small extent. I know it's not perfect. The truth is you have to spend time selling to start to understand, to start building that muscle. Ken, I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to add to that.
Yes, and again, just on what Virginie was talking about, it is always important, even when you're preparing your sales deck or your pitch deck. Your pitch deck talks about technical things and about what your solution can do. However, you need to prepare, especially when you're beginning and you're not used to it, a set of questions, and it's always good to write them down. And you have like 2 big headlines saying, as is question. What are you currently doing? How do you deal with your, do you find this particular thing a challenge? How are you dealing with it? How soon do you want to get the solution? So it's something that we can do, and Andrew and I, I'm sure, can come up with something where we can give you a script as to the questions you need to ask, and you can actually carry them. You can put them on your phone, you can put them on your computer or in your wallet, so that you make sure that until you're experienced enough to just ask them off the top of your head, you follow a particular sequence. So even this might just be jumping a bit, but even when you have salespeople, you want them to all ask similar questions so that you're able then to evaluate them in terms of the information that they're collecting from clients. But we can get a script. A script is not very difficult to create, and that is usually created together with the person who is selling the solution, which is you. So it's something that we can do, definitely.
Thanks, Katie. I see Jesse has his hand up.
Hi, Andrew. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely. Sorry I joined in late. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. So my question is, 2 days ago, Yango, you know Yango, the taxi hailing app company? So the Namibian partners reached out to me, and they want to insure their drivers because they heard me talking. I was having a conversation in a coffee shop, and they overheard the conversation. They called me. They'd like to meet me. Now, this is my concern, and maybe you could advise. They want me to meet them with many other partners across the country in one meeting, and I said no. Let's rather meet with just the Windhoek branch and maybe just one section of the city which is each section has about 23 to 40 drivers, and the city has got about close to 30 sections. So that's close to about 3,000 drivers just in the city. So I mentioned to them, let's do the one section first, and then onboard the rest. And the only reason I said that is so that I too can learn from their business, what their business is like, what's their needs, what are the pain points, what are the requests, the whole 9 yards, you know, before magnifying or going before taking in the whole group of people, right? So I just want to know from you, is that a wrong approach or is that somewhat the right approach to this sales thing? Because the lady did seem a bit like, no, we should have everybody in the room. And I was like, no, just you in the room, you know? But we never concluded on that. She said I should call her back. And I was grateful for that part.
When you say partners, are you talking about their driver partners or who's going to be in the room?
The driver partners, the agents.
The driver partners who you're supposed to insure.
No. The agents, each agent has a total of 20 to about 40 drivers.
Okay,
right?
so they're like intermediaries.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
got it. And what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of the scale or?
I'm afraid of going too fast because I love learning as well, and I would prefer that we do a 60-day, where for 60 days, if I do not hear one complaint or query or just any weird thing, then I know, hey, let's bring in the hundreds of them. But if I hear a few complaints or queries, then I know that, hey, we need to step back a bit, and we need to ensure that the next batch or cohort that we bring on, they don't experience a similar problem before bringing in the whole lot of them, you know?
All right. Would maybe two last questions from me. So your real fear is really around just the scale. The problems would
Yes.
probably be the same in the different sections of the city. The issues that would come up would probably be the same.
Most probably, yes. That's what I'm assuming. That's why I wanted to see if there'd be any issues with the first cohort.
Okay. All right. The reason I was going to ask that is that you might want to buy some time, maybe if it makes sense, to ask the parent company guys to organize a meeting with representatives from all the sections that you can talk to and pick up any additional information that might be useful for you to ensure that you have a much more solid offering to the driver. Yeah, so that will give you feedback. That will it will provide you feedback and allow you to kind of polish up your solution to the market. And then you want to take back control over the rollout by then proposing a rollout that makes sense to you in terms of whether it's section by section or numbers by numbers, in terms of saying we'll take on 500 drivers at a time, or section X, Y. So you want to take control of the onboarding to an extent, because you don't want to be overstretched, whether it's resource-wise, issue-wise, so on and so forth. So my idea is that you want to kind of take back control. Obviously, you're onto a good thing if someone, just by overhearing you, they have jumped, from awareness to they want to engage you directly, which is very positive. I'm sure there are many organizations that would dream to be in that situation, but you probably want to regain some control over how that will roll out.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'll make notes of these. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I think we can move on. Otherwise, we'll be here all night. We're already at 25 minutes past the hour.
Sorry,
So
Andrew.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew. Before you proceed, it's Tawanda here from Zimbabwe.
Hi, Tawanda.
Hi. My 2 cents on Jess's concern. I would say, I think the fear is around the claims ratio issues on the big numbers from how I'm perceiving it. So I would propose that he does a sample size of one of each driver or agent, whichever is correct, from each of these sections. Because I think these guys are also concerned about, trying to get a feel of how each section or region or geographical location is different from the other. So that way you also get a very clear wide rather than a depth, analysis of what happens from one geographical location to the other. That would be my 2 cents.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Tawanda. And I mean, definitely good points there. If there's any additional information you can get from the parent insurance company around their existing claims ratios, that kind of stuff, that will help, because that will also give you a baseline that will show the value that you're bringing in once your solution is live. And then that will give you a stronger position to argue for whether it is whatever money that you're asking for or the type of partnership that you want to drive. Okay, so allow me to move on. So this is purely just an introduction, but really here what we are going to talk about in the next couple of slides is around, the channel overview and how products get to market. So of course there's direct, from producer to consumer, which is a direct channel. There's the indirect channel, which there are a couple of different variations, as you can see, where there could be a retailer in between the producer and consumer, there could be a wholesaler, then retailer, there could be a distributor, and then an agent broker, then a distributor, retailer, consumer. So these different channels are used, across different types of industries. And of course, finally, there's online, which is almost, I wouldn't say it's direct, it's almost self-serve, because the customer is the one who brings themselves and engages with your product directly. So we could start with direct sales channels and what they give you. Number one, they give you more control. They give you a better relationship. The feedback loop is very strong, and your profit margin tends to be higher. The purchase occurs directly from the business without much use of an intermediary, and it fosters personalized interactions with immediate feedback. A good example of this, you think of your typical bank. Yes, banks are trying to move away from this because of the cost of a direct sales channel and introducing, whether it is different models, of course, online banking, ATMs, so on and so forth. There's now agent banking, agency banking, but most banks sell their products directly to end customers. They have relationship managers for larger customers who keep interactions personalized and are able to provide you with personalized solutions. Many banks are currently investing a whole amount of money into systems that will give them this 360-degree view of their customers. The same thing is happening with insurance. Now, insurance has been very a traditionally intermediated business, with the insurance company on one hand having then an intermediary, and then the customer at the end of that chain. The challenge with that for insurance companies is that they have this relationship, this engagement here is owned by someone else. The data is owned, the feedback is owned, the control is owned by somebody else. And many insurance companies are trying to find ways to get that direct engagement back. And this is where a lot of you guys might also find an opportunity to providing access directly to the customer. Indirect sales channel, many technology companies use this, where you have the OEM, for example, Microsoft, Dell, Oracle, you name them, AWS. They have a distributor, then they have a partner who adds value. The distributor tends to usually just, push out licenses or boxes if it's hardware. Then there's a partner who puts in additional value add, either putting the solutions together, reconnect or intermarrying different technologies together so that they work better to provide a solution, and then the customer at the end. So sometimes you'd have these exclusive types of distribution. You'd have selective or intensive, where you have these, multi-layered engagements. Now, for some of you, this is a route to market. We're working together with partners, affiliates, resellers, or agents. This is how you expand. This is how you grow. And it is so important that you build the right kind of channel management solution, because your success is tied to someone else's sweat, so to speak. If you do not recognize that person's sweat and remunerate them for that, they will stop selling whatever it is that you want them to sell. And what then obviously will happen is that your product will die. Online sales channels, we probably don't need to go through much into this, but the key takeaway here is that a lot of buyers prefer this. Even when someone goes into a shop, they probably have done their online research, they have understood exactly what it is that they want. So when they walk into that mobile phone shop, they don't really appreciate the sales person approach or to which phone do you want. These guys most of the time tend to know exactly which device they want, which product they want, and prefer that kind of engagement where it is available. Obviously, in many of our markets, online sales is still a developing aspect of engagement, but it is one which is picking up pretty quickly, especially for standard items. And things like insurance will soon become a standard item. So the intermediaries, the in-betweens, the wholesalers will start to drop away and will be taken over by mobile applications, web pages, especially for simple over-the-counter type purchases. I want to get through this slide, then I'll open up for some questions. We do have a couple more to go through, but these are just basically the kind of key differences between B2B and B2C. B2B tends to have, you're obviously targeting other businesses. Decision makers tend to have multiple stakeholders, and those are all the people we talked about: economic decision maker, technical decision maker, so on and so forth, legal, all that. Sales cycle is longer, much more complex. Purchase motivation tends to be ROI focused. It's rational. You have to prove your value. The market size is smaller, and the value per customer is obviously higher. B2C, some of you guys are doing this. You're going to individual customers. There has to be an emotional connection to the value that you're bringing. It's larger, it's mass market, and that's because it's also a lower transactional value per customer. So you're not going to make tons of money per sale, but you're really there for the thousands and thousands and thousands of sales that you're able to drive through. So before we go into team development, any questions or comments so far on this? Ken, also feel free to add in anything. Yeah, please.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Joseph. I'm from Koga, from Cameroon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. I just have a concern, because as you're talking about sales funnel and sales channel, what we did is that we created a CRM. We created the CRM, and the key thing in the CRM is to manage the status. So I wanted to find out if I don't know if we can work on it. Maybe you could have a little time to help us to check the status and ensure that the status are good for the channel, because we have one CRM for B2C and one CRM for B2B. That's the point. The other thing is that as we were talking about the wording, I was thinking that as the sales agent are supposed to fill the CRM, maybe the objective must be that as they know that they should have this information to fill the CRM, it could conduct the discussion with the customer. I don't know if you understand me. So what the response he needs and the response he has to put inside the CRM. So that must be what should conduct his discussion with the customer. So that was the 2 points I wanted to find out and have your advice. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. So we are actually discussing sales tools next week, and we can do that and as we finalize
Hello?
this session. Can you hear me? All right, as we finalize this session, we can now bring it together with the sales tools aspect, because I believe your question was to do with CRM and the management of CRM, specifically where you have, in your case, you have 2 CRMs, one for B2C,
yes, okay.
one for B2B. So I think it would be important after we go through our session next week on tools, we can see if your questions are not answered, we can now look at how we can develop something specifically for you. Okay, let's look at your B2B sales team strategy, development strategy. And this is, again, this is just a guideline. This is a template. And remember, this is driven specifically by this slide where we're talking about how you'd have to engage, because you're engaging multiple stakeholders. It's a longer, more complex sales cycle. The purchase motivation is ROI focused. You want to be able to build a team that is going to target the different aspects, the different parts of the sales cycle that you are. So once you have your target audience, the ideal customer profile, you have to define what your sales motion is going to be, and then put people in place that are going to help push those different aspects of that sales motion through. So for example, in B2B, you tend to find that the process is broken into distinct stages. First, there is the awareness part. You want to go out and create awareness. How do we create awareness? You can do webinars. You can have small meetings, one to few. You can have one-to-one meetings where you're creating this awareness within those target businesses that you want to talk to. Who is doing that? It could be a sales development representative, or it could be the founder, CEO in the case of a startup, where you're going, knocking on doors and creating awareness. The next stage is to prove what it is that you can do. So you need a slightly different skill set to do that. And this would be a technical salesperson. Usually, these would be some of your development team supported by you if it's a small organization, or you could have account executives who go together and run these proof of concepts, run the technical aspects of the selling. So remember, you're moving from awareness to the proof, and then final to closure. I'll just try and break it down into those kind of 3 simple steps. The closure, again, is where you're now back to prove your return on investment. And this is to the economic decision maker. You're making sure that the technical guys are still on board because you have sold to them in your proof of concept. The users are on board because they understand how your solution is going to work with them. And then now finally, you're selling to the person with the money. So it is more complex, and you have to build a team that will do these different things. There's the customer-facing team, whether it's awareness, sales, technical sales, and closure. There's management who act as the backup to your customer-facing team when the big guns are called in to help close the deal with the CEO. This is you as the founder. This is the sales manager who's helping run the customer-facing team. And then there's the support guys who work in the back end to deal with issues throughout the running of the solution once the solution is working. Any questions on that? Especially, maybe one comment here, for a small team, small startup, you'll find that often it is one salesperson who's usually the founder, CEO, who's doing all the running around. But this has to change pretty quickly as you scale, and you have to have a sales organization in mind based on the kind of journey that your customer will have to walk through. So even as you start engaging your customers now, start identifying the different kind of sales stages that they're going through, from awareness to convincing them to go into a technical proof of concept or proving the technology is working, to the sales, to the support at the end. I've kind of taken you through this, but what you want to look for, and this is where Ken will probably come in and talk a little bit about this. Once you have developed the kind of structure that you need, you have to go out and look for people. In the beginning, because you're the one who's developed the solution, you're the one who understands how it positions itself in the market, you may find that you have all these traits. But the key traits that you want from a good salesperson are the ones that are put up there. Resilience, optimism, drive are probably critical for a startup, because the number of rejections you will have, you will need to have somebody who is able to push and push and push, fall down, stand up, fall down, stand up, and keep pushing. There's a famous story about, again, I love car sales examples. There was somebody who was selling Mercedes Benzes. There was a salesman there who was very wealthy. And on the opposite side of the road was somebody who was selling much cheaper cars. I think they were Seats or something, whatever they were. And the person who was looking for a new salesperson said, I would rather get the person from the Seat organization, because that guy has a hard job. He's directly outside the opposite the Mercedes-Benz sales shop. And the Mercedes guy sales shop probably just attracts customers in. But you want someone with resilience, especially when you're in a startup, who's able to keep going out there and push for the sales. In terms of best practices, you want to have compelling job description, highlighting earning potential, because salespeople live on what is potentially going to be the big bonus at the end of the period, at the end of the sale. If a salesperson is comfortable with your base salary, then you have a problem. They want to be hungry about where they can be if they make the sale. You want to engage promptly with candidates. Top talent doesn't wait. They get picked up and they disappear pretty quickly. Use role-specific assessment, mock calls, objection handling, because you as the founder have probably been through that. So you can create a script that you can try and test these people on their ability to handle tough customers. And then assess motivation and ability to bounce back from failure. Ask the right kind of questions and try and find out if these people are able to be driven even when times are tough. Ken, anything that you want to add on there?
Yeah, and it's pretty much a quick one, but you mentioned it, I think maybe further, but I just want to focus on those three traits: resilience, optimism, and drive. Now, I can almost bet you 90% of the CVs or resumes you get do not have any specific section where you're able to evaluate someone's resilience, optimism, or drive. So what does that mean? That means that when you call people in for interviews, part of your interview process should be what Andrew calls role-specific assessments. Yeah, like objection handling. So to put it in the real sense, if someone walked into my office today and wanted a sales job, I'd ask them, okay, could you give me an example of a time when you had to overcome a difficult situation? For example, a job loss, loss of a partner, loss of a parent, loss of a child, and ask them to describe the difficulty and how they overcame it. That would be able to tell you a lot on about someone's optimism or their drive, their resilience. So you would find that what you read in books as to what the ideal sales questionnaire or interview questionnaire should be is really just textbook. So you've got to keep your eyes open for to recruit people with those three key things. For example, if you walked into, I'm sure all of you have walked into a restaurant and you've seen one waiter or waitress who is absolutely busy or who is always smiling. It could be a guard at the door who always opens for you the door with a smile, someone who is happy to help. And those are the traits that you need to be looking for when you're finding a salesperson. A common mistake that people make when they are looking for a salesperson is they tend to hire people who are like them, maybe earlier. So I want to hire someone who is like KT. Either he's boisterous, he's inquisitive, and so on and so forth. But those might not necessarily be the correct traits for sales. So again, keep your focus on resilience, optimism, and drive. You would find that these guys are, for example, either very religious or they volunteer at organizations and so on. So that already shows you that this guy is willing to help and is willing to learn. So again, part of the best practices is prioritize culture more or over just a culture fit. Yeah. So how is this person able to mingle with a particular culture? I once recruited a guy who was a pastor in a church, and every Sunday the guy would wake up and preach to his congregation. And for me, I said to him, you know, you have such a powerful ability of convincing people when you talk about the Bible or the Quran, etc. If you're able to transfer that talent into selling insurance, for example, it would be you would be rewarded greatly. And guess what happened? The guy actually became one of our top salespeople. But again, it's the things that someone does on a day-to-day basis that makes it easy for them to fit into a sales job. And finally, assess motivation and ability to bounce back from failure. You would find typically most sales guys, especially in the insurance industry, maybe do not have such great CVs or great marks. Maybe they didn't go to college and so on and so forth. But that doesn't stop them from being the guy who is always helpful and who is always ready to give a helping hand. So those are the kind of things that you look for. But again, key traits, top 3 things: resilience, optimism, and drive. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Katie. So we'll just touch on this takeaways quickly around channels. Understand your channels, and your target audience, because if depending on how you approach the market, the channel can either complicate or simplify your success. So you want to think about, which ones would be best for how you get to market. Joseph had mentioned that in his case, he's got 2 different channels, got B2B, B2C. Sometimes, depending on how much resources you have, you may want to focus more on one or the other. The 2 might be interlinked, but think through strategically. What are your channels and what team structures would support that customer engagement? And then lastly, you want to cultivate a strong sales team culture that aligns members around shared goals. Remember the value proposition that we talked about in week 1? Your culture should be able to come out through in that value statement, because it will be the way people will behave when things are not very clear. I always say that's what culture is. When they don't have all the information, when they don't have all the numbers, if, for example, your culture is customer first, they will behave in that way. And you want to drive that for people to start thinking that this is the way our organization works. So in terms of building and scaling the sales team, we talked about things like the traits and all that. You want to have clear roles and responsibilities. And often at the beginning, this may not be clear. But if you say someone is a sales, an account manager, what does that actually mean? Does that mean that they are an account manager for a type of industry, for example, in the financial services or in public sector? And if that is the case, the person who sells to public sector is probably got a different kind of disposition as opposed to someone who's selling to retail, if you're going to get specialized. But you want to have clear roles and responsibilities so that even when you're paying people, there's no overlap. You're able to define, this is the person who brought the sales into the business, and this is the person who closed the business, so this is the person who gets the bonus. You want to have effective compensation models. You want to create systems for continuous improvement so people can see growth in their careers. You want to develop sales playbooks. This is a big part of what you guys should be doing now, especially once you're going in from pure startup to growth phases. You want to start looking at what are the sales motions, what are the engagement value proposition, our slide decks, how should they look, the look and feel of what our people should be to their customers. These are the things that you want to start developing now because it becomes part of your sales culture. The challenge that many of you would probably have is that because you're operating in an industry that is, let's call it what it is. I think Katie had mentioned something like analog, heavily regulated, slow decision processes, risk averse, traditional business models, complex compliance requirements, as opposed to you guys who are looking at fast-paced innovation, so on and so forth. You know who you are. So you want to be able to find a balance without getting frustrated as you're trying to engage your customers. In terms of defining core roles, many of you are founder sellers. what are the pros and cons of founder-led sales? Number one, you tend to be the only one. So scalability is a challenge. You tend to be the only repository of all information. How do you create what we had talked about earlier, which are these sales playbooks, to try and transfer some of that knowledge and create a repository that can be replicated amongst other people? We talked about the sales development representative. These are people who are the engine of pipeline generation. Their work is to go out and create leads. So prospecting and qualifying, those two things, knocking on doors, talking to customers, and finding those basic things we call BANT. Is there a budget? Is there a budget? Are we talking to the right person? Authority? Is there a need? And is there a timeline? So those two things are done by SDR, by the sales development representative. You can call them whatever it is that you want to call them. These are terms that are kind of just global, but all these kind of terms are changing. So for example, the account executive, this is the person who's closer to the customer and is the closer of the deal. This is a person who has those relationships with the PAs, with the coach, with the different door gatekeepers, so on and so forth. This is a person who brings in the revenue. Account executives are now known in some places as customer success managers, because they're not just seen as salespeople, but they're responsible for the success of your solution within that customer. So they manage the entire team that's invisible to the customer, your developers, your support people, so on and so forth, including management, to bring out the best of your solution within this customer. And then there's, of course, a hybrid role, who is a bit about what you guys as founder resellers are doing, where you're managing all these different roles. Compensation plans, and I think this is one of our last slide, like I mentioned earlier. You want to think about compensation plans deeply, because this is what will determine many real salespeople's energy to engage with you. You'll find that at entry level, you'll find the compensation plan tends to have a base salary, because the salary tends to be small. You want this person to be able to live. But then there is the variable compensation which comes in play when they start closing deals. Some organizations go above 100% based on the person going above 100% of their sales target. And then they even have accelerators. So for example, if somebody sells 150% above their target, there's an accelerator of 1.5 times on their variable compensation. So someone can even go home with double their salary, depending on the kind of compensation plan that you have. And I'll be happy to share some templates that I've worked with you guys in the future when we meet in Zambia. We have mid-level people who tend to be closer to 50 and 60%, like the senior level guys. Also, the ownership of what the person gets a bonus for is also critical. At senior level and leadership level, you're trying to reward someone for more than just the sales they bring. They must be responsible for things beyond just revenue. They want to be responsible for culture. They have to be responsible for profitability, which is critical. They want to be responsible for customer satisfaction, which is also important. Let me just check. I think there's somebody who has joined with a bit of noise. Yeah, thank you. And then going back to the slide, like I said, there's ratios. There's metrics. How do you pay your commission? You pay it on revenue. You pay it on premium, gross written premium, or number of new logos. So for example, entry level sales development person, these are your agents and whatever who are just bringing in leads that are qualified. You probably want to give them a compensation on new logos. On your more senior management people, you want to pay commissions based on maybe gross written premium or, you know, that kind of thing. And then there's accelerators and clawbacks. Clawbacks is something no salesperson likes, but a clawback is if I've given you compensation, I'd explain to you what an accelerator is. This is when someone has overperformed and you want to reward them for that because they've gone above and beyond. But similarly, if there are a salesperson who doesn't secure good business, where the customer just pays for the first month and then they disappear, kind of thing, there has to be a way in your contract that you can claw back any bonuses that you have given to this salesperson who brought you bad business. So you want to pay for only good business that is sustainable business for the organization. Anything, KT, you want to add to that? Because I think we are now at the end and we have gone literally for 2 solid hours.
Yeah, cheers. And mine is just a quick one. And in more developed companies, you find that they have or rather older companies, you find they have a very elaborate compensation design and modeling. Again, suited to the particular role the person is within the organization. So you find that in early stage, a new recruit maybe is looking for stability and to be able to do the regular things that I'm cold calling, I'm qualifying my leads, I'm making my presentations, I'm making my closes, I'm doing product delivery, and so on. Many of those things are almost routine. So you want the person to be comfortable. You don't want to have a starving salesperson out there representing your brand. But there should be a sufficient mix such that when the person achieves or even exceeds, there is something in it for them. As they move to the mid-level, you will notice also that their base salaries also go lower, so they are more target-oriented. They want to bring more and more. Same thing with the senior level. You would find, for example, if you have a small team, say of 5, with 1 team leader, you want to be able maybe to include a metric of measurement where you pay them a commission based on the team's performance rather than their own performance. That way, if they're paid something on based on what their team brings in, they will spend a bit more time trying to make sure that their sales team brings in a lot more because they would also get compensated. So you've got to think carefully through your compensation design or your compensation model such that you're able then now to reward great performance. And like Andrew says, you need to punish. So where there's reward, there is also punishment. So that has to be very, very clear that if I don't meet this target, these may be the consequences. Because whatever the consequences for not meeting your sales target as a salesperson are multiplied when it's now the organization looking at an entire sales team that has not met its target. So you as the entrepreneur, you want to be able to get the right mix between base salary and variable compensation. But here's the thing, even for the largest organization, variable compensation is what you'd hear accountants or finance people love the best, because every end month, they do not have to pay $1 million or 1 million shillings or 1 million kwacha to all the staff. They would pay, they love the variable because variable says we pay only from what has been brought in. So sometimes it's also good to think of that kind of model where someone then is motivated that at the end of this month, I've made two sales or 3 big sales, or they are coming into the next month and I'm going to get my bonus then. You're able to tie in a lot of motivational stuff for your salespeople when they are on the right compensation model. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Ken. So we have come to the end of this evening. Like I'd said, I will share, if you guys have access to that, the first presentation from the first week, it does have that statement, the value statement that you can use to try and build for the different personas. But this presentation will also be shared with you, and you can go through some of the stuff that we had highlighted. So, but any questions or comments? I will also share a couple of extra reading materials that you can probably get online or buy and read specifically around the topics that we have had today. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Andrew and Katie, thank you so much. Especially that last slide, amazing stuff. I'll definitely work on my sales strategy tonight, and hopefully I can present it to my mentor when the time comes. But amazing stuff. Thank you so much. It really helps a lot. I can't be the only one doing sales, you know. So
sure,
thank you.
100%. You have to grow.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for that comment. Any other questions or comments? I know it's been a long one. Appreciate your time. We are available for engagement, but I think our next engagement is next Tuesday. But we'll talk a lot more about tools. And if you have questions about this week, about what we have covered today, I know it's been a long one, we can cover that in the first 10, 15 minutes, because next week will be a bit shorter, and then go into the main presentation. So thanks so much, guys, for your time. Really, really appreciate it. It's been a fantastic session. Thanks for hanging about, and hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a good evening.
guys.
Thank you so much.
I need to. Thank you, guys. I've put my blog link there. And like I said, there are many sales lessons that can build on what we are doing here. So thanks a lot and have a lovely evening. Take care.
Bye-bye.